Then middle adulthood is called generativity versus stagnation. It's a real nice sounding one. And they're driven to care, attention to investment in the future, desire to produce something of value and to contribute to society. You know, early adulthood is looking for the relationships. They're focused a lot on relationships. Middle adulthood is saying, why do I matter? Am I going to live my whole life and not make a difference and really be significant and matter? That's why you talk about midlife crisis. And people hit midlife crisis and it's like, I don't matter. Life's passing me by. And nothing seems to be all that great here. And they're dealing with these issues, the care and investment in the future. Make a difference in society. This can be a very good stage in life where somebody really wants to contribute to the good of society. And if they don't feel that way, then they just kind of stagnate. It's when they sit in their lazy boy and do nothing. And just kind of start going through life like, who cares?
I have a question. I mean, whenever you get to that age and that point, or like a mother who has a lot of children, that can be difficult. And in my past, that was kind of that desire was ridiculed because it's like the argument was that she is doing something beneficial stuff being at home with her kids, but I think it's still good for even a mother with a lot of children and responsibilities to be doing something for the community.
Mothers often do struggle with this less if they are child rearing, because women typically do get a sense of satisfaction from being a parent, a mother. But I think you're right, especially Christians, there's always something to do to help others. Always. And so I think you're right. But being a parent does seem to help women to struggle with this. Sometimes, you can't stereotype here, but you know, there's a stereotype that men struggle with this midlife crisis more. That's probably accurate to say. But you don't want to approach it to think that it doesn't affect women. But men are also driven more by being significant, typically. And again, there's exceptions to that.
Every stereotype has some truth in it.
Yes. You're right. That's why it's a stereotype. Because it usually has a lot of truth in it. Okay. But there's usually exceptions to it. That's the way I look at stereotypes. It's a stereotype, but there's exceptions to it. And I always want to say that because nobody fits every stereotype that you ought to fit. We just don't. Okay? There's some exception in life for everybody. And so I don't want people to say, I don't fit that stereotype, there's something wrong with me. No, there's not. Okay? And we're all unique individuals, and that's a good thing. Okay? And then the later adulthood is, and the last one is integrity versus despair. Later adulthood, driven to find wisdom. Older adults view life as either having been meaningful, in other words, my life mattered, it was worthwhile, or they look back and say, my life really is just full of a bunch of regrets. You know, I'm really not happy with my life. I don't feel like I accomplished much. I feel like I was a failure. And so this is a serious point. And people that counsel older adults, and there's some people that specialize in counseling older adults. This is a lot of what they deal with. What happens? You get to the end of life, you look back, and what do you have? Rather than fond memories, a bunch of regrets. I've been a failure. I didn't do well with my family. I didn't do well in my career. I've been didn't do well spiritually. Life is bad. And as an older adult, it's hard to look at life at that stage and say, oh, I can fix this. I can still turn it around. Because you tend to look back at that point. Now, I don't know if that's always a good thing, because it's amazing what some people have done when they were already past the point of being able to do anything in a lot of people's minds. And there's some amazing stories about what people have accomplished. in old age. So there's hope for me. Okay. So they're looking for this wisdom, for this integrity versus despair. And you may know some older adults that live in despair. Everything's bad. And it's a sad thing. Okay. Any comments about Erickson's social-emotional theory?
How well do we have to remember the things for the test?
How will you?
How well?
How well? Very well. Yes, that was my next comment, but I was afraid to make it because I didn't want to see these icy stares. You gonna make us learn this, John? Yes, I'm gonna make you learn this. It will be a matching or a multiple choice question, so you're not going to have to pull the terminology from memory, but you will have to be able to match up each of these stages with either the ego virtue or the basic concept of it. Yes. Sorry. You will. This is one of the things I remember trying to when I told you I was getting ready for my comprehensive exams from grad school. This is one of the things I remember teaching in my role play thing to try to get it in my head. You probably don't need to go through all of that. Maybe, I don't know. But you won't have to just memorize. I mean, you'll have to know the terms enough that when you see them, you know what they mean. Okay. Good question. All right. Piaget has a theory of cognitive development, and there's a page 177. You can see a figure of it. See the 4 blocks up there if you have your books. And basically he says we inherit 2 different cognitive abilities or tendencies, I guess is the better wording for that. How well we can organize mental processes and knowledge, and then, which is called organization, and adaptation, how we adjust to the environment. So there are 2 different cognitive things. How you can mentally process and knowledge, and how you organize this mental process, how that works basically. Does your brain work in an organized way? Okay. And adaptation is how do you adjust to the environment? What happens if things aren't quite as you expect them to be? He says this is a cognitive ability that you're able to adjust. And you see why that would be a nice cognitive ability? Has anyone lived long enough yet to know that life isn't always like you expect it to be or want it to be?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thought maybe you had. And learning to adjust. Learning to adapt things. Okay, this didn't work. Now what do we do? Approach, okay? So basically he says you have 2 cognitive tendencies. Organization, how we systematically organize mental processes and knowledge. And then adaptation, how we adjust to the environment. Here's his 4 stages, and these are what's pictured in the textbook on page 177. The sensory motor stage. This is when a child begins to differentiate himself from other things. You say, well, of course. No, the baby, they don't get that at first. Or at least we can't tell that they get that at first. And they start then to focus on these items that are different than they are, and they start to take notice of it. And they start noticing what we call environmental stimuli. And you see very rapid development of motor skills. If you've been around a child in the first 18 months, it's pretty amazing to watch how quickly they start developing things. And to see them, their motor skills are pretty pathetic at first, okay? They're trying to reach something and it's just like they can't quite figure out where to get to the right spot. And then as they start to get more and more coordinated, and Then they start walking and all of that stuff, you know, all of this. So, and a child at this learns during this time. Where do I have it different? Maybe it's different on different things. I have to look into that. I'm not sure why I have that different. But there's a lot of motor development. They recognize also that there are objects that they know there's an object that exists when it's not present. For instance, if you are playing with them with a toy, they develop to the point where they may want that toy even though they can't see it. Early on, they can't do that. If it's not present, then it doesn't exist. But then they start fussing for something, and you find out it's that toy they were missing or whatever, or a person that wasn't there. Of course, they do that with mom usually right off, but then they start doing it with other people. They seek cognitive stimulation. They want things. That's why you see so many toys for this age, you know, that you, what do they call them, mobiles?
Yeah.
You put them over their beds and play areas and stuff, and there's all these things that move and do this and play that they can play with, mirrors that they look in and they can see themselves. They are almost like desperate for cognitive stimulation, and you want to give it to them. That's very, very important for a child's development. Cognitive development is that they have that mental stimulation. And so it's very important that caregivers interact with this age child.